Hey, what's up squad? Today we're going to be finishing our look at how you can build the best decks you possibly can for your next battle in Clash Royale. For those of you who missed it, I'd highly recommend you check out part 1 of this video by checking out the link in the pinned comment and description down below, and you'll be able to learn all the nitty-gritty details you need to while watching this video. So if you have any questions after watching this video, just drop a comment down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, if you guys are interested in joining my clan family, please do check out the description down below for a link to our Discord server. More information can be found in the frequently asked questions channel there. So with these messages out of the way, let's roll the intro. Hey, what is going on everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of my deck building guide. So now that you know all the theory of cards and decks after watching part 1, we can start to understand how some of the most effective decks are made. Do note that whether a deck seems structured enough or even ridiculous, almost all decks can be usable depending on the circumstances at hand, such as what you're up against currently and the skill levels of both you and your opponent, as there have been cycle decks used in the past by pro players that have been proven to not only be viable decks, but also they can help you to understand the concepts of cycling, elixir management, and other fundamentals while using them. This, however, does not mean you can use a deck made of skeletons, spear goblins, ice spirit, log, zap, clone, rage, and heal and expect to actually win a serious match with it, because they do not have much synergy and anything that gives them some sort of an edge in any situation. So when you're building a deck, you could say that there is a blueprint of sorts that you can follow to make something that's viable for your own playstyle. Good decks generally consist of 1 to 2 win conditions, 1 to 3 spells, and then they fill in the remaining gaps with support and cycle cards. While there can be certain decks out there which can pack up to 3 win conditions, most decks generally never go beyond this number, and where spells are concerned, 2 spells are usually standard. 3 is still decent, but any more than this and you will find yourself having a deck that has very awkward cycles very often, and rarely ever you will have viable decks using this many spell cards, unless it's some iteration of a graveyard deck which has a win condition as a spell by itself already being used in conjunction with other spells such as poison, tornado, and the log. So, using the aforementioned formula, you should first take a look at what win conditions suit your playstyle best, and then figure out which archetype is best to branch off into based on your personal preferences. Once you've identified which win conditions you'd be using in your deck, you would then need to figure out which cards would be best to support them and best fill in the gaps in your deck's defenses, as you can't be on the aggressive all the time, as your opponents will inevitably make a push of their own, and when they do, you need to be able to have tools at your disposal to dispatch of them immediately with some degree of ease. So to put things into perspective here, let's take a look at a case scenario. So if my win condition was a giant, then I would most likely be playing a deck which has a medium to high average elixir cost. This is due to the fact that the giant is a slow card by nature and is ideal for the more expensive beatdown decks. With our primary win condition out of the way, we can then decide if we want a secondary win condition or not. If we did need one, we would then choose between cards that are either the same cost as the giant or those which are cheaper, at least in most cases, unless it's something like 3 Musketeers. So some examples of secondary win conditions which you can pack in your decks would include, but are not limited to, Balloon, Battle Ramp, Graveyard, Goblin Barrel, Hog Rider, Royal Hogs, Miner, and Royal Ghosts. There are of course many more we can choose from, and depending on the synergies between what we already have, we can then consider a possible third. But for those of you who are just learning to make decks on the whole, it would be best if you learned how to properly build and use decks that pack 1 to 2 win conditions at best. Generally, I love having Miner around in almost any deck, so I would take him, especially because he can synergize very well with pretty much any other card in the game. And that, my friends, is not an understatement, it's literally true. Pair Miner up with almost anything and I guarantee you it will probably work out for the best. When picking spell cards, you need to be very careful. There are some spells which you can invest in more readily because there are a plethora of decks which may have use for them. Some of the more versatile spells may include Zap, the Log, Barbarian Barrel, Fireball, and Poison. All of these spell cards have extremely high usage and win rates because of their utility and versatility, which can be very beneficial to their users in a number of situations. Each of these cards has something that the other doesn't, such as the Zap spell having a stun that can reset charges on things such as a Sparky, Inferno Dragon, and Inferno Tower, whilst the Log can knock back any approaching ground units, and this can potentially make them retarget onto something else after the momentary stun is over. So overall, these spells are safer investments, even though the Barbarian Barrel might be the riskier of those listed since it's very controversial right now at the time of recording this. So what it really boils down to is a personal preference and synergy with the type of deck that you're using. So if you're someone who likes immediate damage cards, then spells such as the Zap spell and Fireball may appeal to you more, or if you like the idea of area control better, then cards such as the Log and Poison may be better picks. Now, spells such as the Giant Snowball, Arrows, Tornado, and Freeze are also very decent, but they do require somewhat specific decks for them to work very well. On the other hand, cards such as Mirror, Rage, and Clone are extremely bad investments in my opinion personally because they require so niche decks that come and go very easily and they don't offer nearly enough versatility as the other spells may do. So do your best to avoid working with any of these if you are planning on pushing higher up in the long run. Trust me folks, what I'm saying here is very true. These cards are not going to be worth your time at all. And as for the lightning and rocket spells, these cards fall into very specific archetypes for the most part, with lightning being a part of the heaviest of non-3 musketeer beatdown decks such as Royal Giant, Lava Hound, and Golem, whilst rocket is more popular in certain fast cycle decks such as Bait, Mortar, or Expo Cycle. Only invest in these cards if you're already sticking with one of these archetypes, otherwise you'll regret it later on, like how I upgraded my lightning spell to level 11 during my first year of playing the game, and then I pretty much never used it for ladder since. So yeah, please just take my advice here folks and don't rush upgrades. You want to pick and choose what you upgrade very methodically, and if possible, try to seek out the advice of others who may be pro players or just players very high up on ladder with experience of around maybe Master 1 or greater. Trust me, if you don't do these sorts of things, then you may end up wasting a ton of resources and a lot of time, which can make you get set back quite a ways and give rise to negativity towards the game that you brought upon yourself. Once your win conditions have been established, you then need to think about what cards would best support them based on how they work. So, since the Giant is a slow card by nature, we would want to pick cards that have similar move speeds and would do a great job at protecting him from almost anything that would hinder his attempts at getting to the tower, such as swarm cards. So, with this in mind, I would recommend picking a card such as a Executioner, Wizard, or Witch that can deal splash damage onto troops in a given area and also help defend against both air and ground threats. Again, this is really important here folks, because if you don't pack cards that can help you out against air, you will run into problems when you're versus a deck that has particular air cards such as Minions, Mega Minion, Baby Dragon, Balloon, anything like that. You will have a hard time when you're facing them, so it's always important to bring cards that can help you out in these scenarios. So, should you choose either the Wizard or Executioner, it usually makes sense to bring along a card such as the Tornado spell, because they synergize very well together. Some other examples of cards which may find a home in beatdown decks may include but are not limited to the Night Witch, Musketeer, Dark Prince, and Mega Minion, which can all be really threatening once you have the Giant up front tanking for them. When choosing a support card, you should make sure that the levels are suitable to be used in the game mode that you're playing. If it's for ladder, ideal levels will be dependent on your trophy range and how level independent the card is. since I had a level 12 witch when I was pushing to 5k, I would very much rather pick her over my level 10 wizard since she can survive spell combos more often, and there's also the bonus of her spawning skeletons for distractions as well. Once you have your main support sorted out, you should then decide if you want to use a building of some sort or a heavy hitting troop to help deal with enemy win conditions such as a Tesla cannon or tombstone in the case of buildings, or troops such as a mini P.E.K.K.A, prince, or even an inferno dragon. Based on my own card levels and preferences, I would take the inferno dragon because it can burn down enemy cards for positive elixir traits in most cases and then be used in the counter push. Even if it's unsupported, this is not a card you can afford to leave on a tower unattended, which means that they will need to expend more and more elixir after having already lost elixir when it burned down other cards already, which would give you a chance to gain an elixir advantage if they didn't have a cheap card in hand to deal with it. And last but not least, we need to look over our cycle cards. Not every deck out there may call for an Ice Spirit or Skeletons, but they can always stand to benefit from having these cards in their deck as they're not too expensive and can aid in sticky situations to help net a positive elixir trade at times. Some cards which you can bank on for helping boost the cycle speed of your deck may include but are not limited to Ice Spirit, Fire Spirits, Ice Golem, Goblins, Spear Goblins, Goblin Gang, Skeletons, Bats, Minions, Mega Minion, Ice Wizard, Princess, the Log, Giant Snowball, Zap, Arrows, and recently since they changed the elixir cost and reworked it a little bit, the Heal spell. As you can see, it does not matter if your cycle cards are troops or spells, so long as they're very low cost and can be used in numerous situations to help make your deck a bit more flexible both offensively and defensively. Some of these cards can even elevate the potential power of your deck even further if they're bait type cards, and other cards exist in your deck would benefit from the absence of counters which you're able to draw out by using these cycle cards. So that's another advantage of building your own deck with a few other low cost cards as well. Depending on the type of deck you're building, I'd strongly recommend using one or more of the following cards. These would be Ice Spirit, Fire Spirit, the Log, Zap, Mega Minion, Goblin Gang, or even the Barbarian Barrel. All of these cards can do well in almost any deck you cram them into, so long as you know what you're doing with them. So now that you've made your decks, you're probably going to need to test them out. If you're wondering about what the best ways are to go about doing this, then fear not, as I have several recommendations for you guys. Normally when one thinks of deck appraisals, you would usually think of Deck Shop Pro, but if I'm going to be honest here folks, after seeing some rather shocking appraisals, I've kinda given up on relying on the site for credible or at least accurate evaluations. I'm sorry if any of you out there may be irritated by this remark, but that's just how I feel about the website right now. So if you're still using the site, please do take your next deck appraisal with a grain of salt. Instead, I would recommend reaching out to pro players in local communities such as CWA's Discord server, where you can catch a chance to interact with many pro players such as Aza, Monkeys, and Sonadude. All of these guys are wonderful people, so I'm sure that they would not mind at all reviewing your decks for you and help you figure out whether it may be a decent one to invest in or not. For those of you who have gems and don't mind spending some of them every now and then, you can test out your decks by playing in classic challenges. By doing this, you'd be matched up against random opponents, and then after some time has passed, you should be able to gauge how well you're able to use that deck, and even begin learning how you can improve in using it. The only downside to this, of course, would be that you may not always be facing the best of opponents, so some matches may be incredibly easy, but there are those few competitive players out there who do in fact grind classic challenges. So there is a chance you would be paired up with an extremely skilled player depending on how far you are in the challenge, or depending on how unlucky you are, you might even fight them somewhere near the beginning of your entry in that challenge. Alternatively, you can possibly try out new decks in some of the global tournaments since they would cost nothing to enter. Just know that once you're knocked out of a global tournament, you cannot re-enter, so you'll have to wait till a new one starts if you want to continue testing your decks out for free. So just keep that in mind, folks. If you're knocked out, you're gonna have to wait and hope and pray that the next one allows you to use your own custom decks. While this may be pretty obvious for many, doing friendly battles can actually help a lot if you know the right people. For example, you can actually challenge friends who you know are very capable players, and if they're up for it, you can even ask them to use decks which they specialize in, which will make it very difficult to play against with your current deck. So you may learn how to better handle hard counters and tough matchups as best as you can. This aspect of controlled or fixed matchmaking can prove to be very beneficial in the long run if you and others you know are willing to go about it. And if you're looking for some new friends to spar with, you can try joining up some Clash Royale communities full of people eager to interact and battle with one another. If you're interested, you can check out the Clash Royale Amino community, which I helped run with some friends. Also my clan family's new Discord server. I'd love to see you guys there, and if you need any questions answered at all, please do feel free to ask them and I will answer as soon as I have the time on my hands. So with all of this being said, I'm fairly certain that you all are much better prepared to make the best decks you possibly can all on your own now. If any of you out there watching go pro after making a monster of a deck after having applied my tips, be sure to give me a shout out when you are famous. Also, if you have any suggestions for future videos, be sure to check out the survey that I've got linked in the description so you can help me figure out what type of content I should work on in the future. And again folks, if you have any interest in joining my clan family, please do check out the description and pin comment down below for more information. Additionally, I will be making some community posts on my community tab for my YouTube channel here, so do check that out from time to time. I will be posting some stuff like polls every now and then, or just update posts to let you all know how the progression is going with some of my new videos. So anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and as always folks, I really appreciate all the support you give me. If we can get this video up to at least maybe 25 likes, maybe 30, that would be really awesome. Also, if you're new to the channel and enjoying what you're seeing, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to be alerted of all future uploads. Once again everyone, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out guys.